A quick recording here, off stream, no chat, blah blah. A just about an hour and a half ago, Politico published an article which refers to a document which was leaked to them. It's a draft court opinion written by Justice Alito, one of the more conservative members of the court, to put it lightly. It's a draft opinion which expresses their intent to overturn Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Or Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Oop. Essentially, I don't know why there's a Politico loading bar on the screen. I don't know why somebody just donated to me when I'm not online. Essentially, a draft document is when the Supreme Court issues a ruling, it issues alongside it quite a bit of writing, and they are essentially pretesting their document that they're going to release alongside an unprecedented revocation of our civil rights. The majority of Americans believe in the right to an abortion. This is a culture war talking point, which has always been disingenuously adopted by the right to justify them doing absolutely nothing for the average American. And here we are. Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. It is not, we've long bantied about this. This is something we've long expected, but this is in writing from Justice Alito, the decision, though it has not passed yet and probably will not for several months. This lays their intentions out pretty clearly. The leaking of a draft opinion from the Supreme Court is unprecedented in modern times. It is not something that happens very often, which suggests to me that whoever leaked it, and I have no idea who leaked it, Politico will probably protect that information to their grave, whoever leaked it did so in the hopes that public outrage will dissuade the court from making their decision. People are going to be outraged at this. Ben Shapiro on Twitter already is, that people would use public opinion to sway the decision-making of Supreme Court justices. The liberal mythology of the Supreme Court justice is that they are apolitical. They are not affected by politics. They are exclusively affected by a completely apolitical interpretation of the Constitution, following only their own judgment and no political pressure whatsoever. This is ridiculous. It is stupid. It is unreasonable. And it is also heavily critiqued, funnily enough, in critical race theory, which is one of the reasons conservatives really don't like critical race theory. Real critical race theory, I mean, not what they call critical race theory. Supreme Court justices are as political as any other living human. There is a reason why conservative Supreme Court justices always seem to arrive at court decisions consistent with the desires of conservative political parties, and vice versa with liberal judges. If public opinion is to influence their decision, I have no problem with this whatsoever, if it can influence their decision. With Casey and Roe overturned, a great number of U.S. states are going to pass total bans on abortion, a right which you have been entitled to since your birth, most likely, judging from the average age of my audience, will, if you live in these states, simply no longer exist. You have every right to be outraged about this. I have talked about abortion many times on my channel, and my opinions on the subject have not changed. I think it's a right that we all have. I want to talk a little bit about the court's decision in brief and simple language, because it is, of course, a draft opinion written by a court justice. It is full of legalese. There are a couple of snippets that people have taken out which seem quite alarming, which I would like to address. Before that, though, I want to speak as a matter of practicality. Things are only going to get worse in the red states. The suggestion that people who are unhappy with the decisions of state legislators should simply move to blue states, if it's they're concerned about something going on in the red ones, has long been considered a fairly classist one. Not everyone can afford to move. Not everyone has the means. There are people who are too young, people dependent on others. Unfortunately, this is becoming more and more of a reasonable suggestion with time. With the Supreme Court effectively not on our side, and the federal government unable or unwilling to legislate and mandate federal protections, red states are only going to get more unhinged and psychotic with time. And given that, I will not blame any of my fair-minded audience members for wanting to get the hell out of there and go to one of the blue states, which will, at least for now, have a much more robust set of protections. Perhaps we're about to see uh, the real difference between the parties. Long of people on the left said that the Dems and the Republicans are the same. Well, I suppose we'll see, won't we, with our state governments. Um, in all seriousness, if you are in a red state, you are probably soon no longer going to be able to have an abortion. If you have a womb, you already know what this means. If you don't, mostly lads, but not entirely, I encourage you to keep this information in mind. Though I believe you will always have the right to travel to another state in order to get an abortion there. Obviously, this can be expensive and time consuming, and I'm not a lawyer. There are some legal circumstances associated with that I am concerned about. I believe you should have a right to go to another state, do something that's legal in that state, but not legal in your home state, and then go back to your home state without prosecution. But I think that's something the federal government has to intervene on. And at the moment, the courts and the federal government don't seem to be reliable avenues for protecting your civil rights. So it is going to get scary out there for a lot of people. I beg of you to use contraception, please. It will soon become more important than before. No pull-out game, lads. Okay, be serious about this. It's your future we're talking about. Um, Anyway, to speak to the ruling itself, there are a couple of particularly stupid bits here. In Alito's draft opinion, he actually pulls out the YouTuber conservative logic lord arguments here that abortion was initially supported by people in favor of eugenics, as though there's any institution in the United States that has at some point been weaponized by eugenicists. They say the poor old African Americans are suffering a disproportionate demographic effect because black people are more likely per capita to have an abortion than not black people, leaving aside the fact that an abortion is a right that we all have, and their disproportionate use of those services probably has more to do with poverty and contraception and education than it does their disproportionate uh, abortioning their use of those services. Don't get me wrong. The fact that there's a disproportionate number of black fetuses aborted is indicative of a problem, but that problem isn't with the right to an abortion. It's with the socioeconomic factors which lead to so many unwanted pregnancies. Anyway, Alito, in the full opinion, essentially says this has all been so controversial. The original Roe v. Wade decision was tenuous legally, which I agree with, by the way. I do agree with that. Not to say that abortion shouldn't be a right. Just from what I've heard, the initial ruling, the right to privacy, that kind of thing, it just seemed like a pretty weak grounding. The right to an abortion should be brought about and maintained through law federally. It shouldn't be up to the Supreme Court ruling to tie it tenuously to some aspect of the Constitution. So we have that, of course, which is brilliant. We also have this right here, which I'm just going to read and then explain. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, including the one on which the defenders of Roe and Casey now chiefly rely, the Due Process Clause, the 14th Amendment. That provision has been held to guarantee some rights that are not mentioned in the Constitution, but any such right must be, quote, deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition, end quote, and, open quote, implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. Washington versus Glucksberg, what a name. The right to an abortion does not fall within this category. The issue here is that the implication is that Alito is casting aspersions on a variety of other protections which tend to be rooted in 14th Amendment language and logic. Now, again, I'm not a legal scholar here. The comment that I'm referring to on Twitter is presumably also not from a legal scholar, but I've seen a lot of people on Twitter blowing up about this and essentially reaffirming this sentiment. So I'll say that many people are saying that the language used here could be equally, implemented as an attack on the federal right to gay marriage, opposition to sodomy laws, the unconstitutionality of anti-sodomy laws, interracial marriage, stuff like that. Um, Essentially, the argument being that by posturing this phony originalist intention with constitutional interpretations. You could go, oh well, nothing in the Constitution says that you have a legal God-given right to be able to have sex with other men. It's something like that. Um, we're not quite there yet, but I think it goes without saying, just looking flatly at the state of the Republican Party today, that if they decide that their next big culture war issue that they want to fixate on is like gay marriage, I mean, we're only like 7 years out from that ruling. It wouldn't be hard to get rid of that for them. But they could go further than that. And they will go further than that because they hate you and they want you to suffer and then die. Um, some of them do this because they simply enjoy your suffering and death, and some of them do it because your suffering and death is a component of a culture war that they fight to distract their hateful voters or their deceived voters from understanding that the Republican Party offers nothing materially to them or to their interests, that they are a sole net negative. It's all a big smokescreen, but it's a smokescreen that kills. It's like a vaporous poison smokescreen. Um, it's gonna get really bad out there, folks. So take care of yourselves. Live in blue states if you can. Seriously, it'll make it easier. If you live in a red state, then yeah, good luck. Yeah, and do keep in mind the reason this document was leaked is almost certainly because the leaker wanted outrage. So feel free. It's a civil right that's being taken from you, something that's been enshrined in this country for half a century. It's going to be gone.